What's up, you movie-loving maniacs, and welcome back to the Lucid Nightmare. I'm your host, as always, Jay Schatzer, and today I have my top 10 flicks of George Romero films. I really love this list. I love all these movies, total classics across the board, and he's one of my favorite all-time directors. So let's get right in to my top 10 flicks of George Romero. Starting off the list at number 10 is the early 2000s unorthodox slasher flick Bruiser. Warped with a wicked sense of dark humor and a schizophrenic and demented personality, this mesmerizing under-the-radar oddity packs quite a punch, with its tremendous and unusual character study and manic spiraling storyline. Vibrantly stylish and boldly sleek for Romero standards, Bruiser is a perfect example on how the legendary director was always reinventing his filmmaking prowess and always thinking outside the box when it came to thought-provoking storytelling. Storytelling that both served as engaging social commentary and captivating cinema fare. Violent, mean-spirited, and shockingly hilarious with charismatic brood, Bruiser is a fantastic departure from the norm, and a wild experience that is never dull thanks to its central star Jason Fleming, and Romero's tendency to write and direct captivating characters and stories. Strangely coming out the same year as American Psycho, the two films share a splendidly warped cinematic world where violence-infused fantasy blends with reality, and with the most awe-inspiring of results. If you love character-driven flicks and psychotic psychological thrillers, then George Romero's 2000 gem is exactly what you need in your life. Casting a wicked spell at number 9 is the psychedelic and ultra-surreal 1972 housewife-turned-witch tale, Season of the Witch, aka Hungry Wives. Lensed in a personable style and ensconced in a dreamlike manner that's truly unique, this interestingly obtuse 70s oddity is a rare breed to say the least, which marches to its own beat and often gets lost in its unusual premise and quirky characters. Following the misadventures of a bored and lonely housewife finding solace and escape in the world of the occult, the film delves into some unorthodox material that is both thought-provoking and intriguing in its weirdness, making for a light horror romp that is more social commentary than anything else. Quaint in its low-key portrayal and intimate in style and substance, this early 70s gem really is a unique diamond in the rough of Romero's wild and varying filmography. Though it is steeped in occult trappings and blanketed in a foreboding obsession with witchcraft, the true standouts of the film are the interesting interactions between the variously entertaining characters and the main housewife, played by Jan White, and her struggles and tribulations in trying to spice her boring life up. It's a truly unorthodox experience to say the least, and one that benefits from Romero's distinct filmmaking style and original approach to tried and true horror archetypes. As far as unusually pleasing films go, this one is one of the best. Murdering its way to the number 8 spot is the fantastic 90s horror anthology flick Two Evil Eyes. Comprised of two outstanding horror tales directed by both George Romero and Italian filmmaker Dario Argento, this devilish duo of terrifying greatness based on short stories by Edgar Allan Poe are absolutely atmospheric and tonally perfect when it comes to things that go creep and make you lose sleep. With a legendary cast of respectable actors and actresses, the production astounds with a violent, mean-spirited disposition that thrives in every frame of this deliciously evil flick. The combination of George Romero's distinct storytelling and Dario Argento's outrageous, macabre sensibilities are a thing of demented beauty, and each filmmaker does a tremendous job in showcasing their cinematic prowess in their respective tales, making for a match made in horror-loving heaven. The inspiration to use Edgar Allan Poe's stories to pair the two filmmakers together was a stroke of genius, and the end result is a masterpiece that thoroughly entertains across the pair of nightmarish tales. Atmospheric, frightening, and completely unsettling, Two Evil Eyes is a grand vision of grotesque debauchery, which perfectly celebrates the two legendary filmmakers in the most frightening of lights. Cruising into the number 7 spot is the fascinating 1981 genre-bending spectacle Knight Riders. Wild, weird, and surprisingly heartfelt and intense, this medieval fair motorcycle matchup is quite an interesting and unexpected production that comes right out of left field. With a bizarre premise and an even crazier series of unpredictable events, Knight Riders is a hard film to summarize and explain, but one that is totally unforgettable once you witness the awesomeness for yourself. Triumphantly headlined by Ed Harris and supported by an eclectic cast of Romero regulars and Pittsburgh natives, this action drama oddity is a blast to experience and a complete gem of Romero's topsy-turvy filmography. If you ever wonder what a medieval fair would be like comprised of a ragtag group of motorcycle riding hippies, hopped up on fighting the establishment and living wild and free, then Knight Riders is the perfect example on what that craziness would look like. It's totally insane and extremely entertaining, filled with some rather intense moments and a remarkable display of acting that will leave you speechless considering the strange material on screen. There's nothing quite like this odd entry in the Romero canon. And if you love odd cinema, then Knight Riders is an absolute cult classic must. Creeping in at number 6 is the outstandingly awesome and extremely entertaining horror anthology flick, Creepshow. Based off and inspired by the popular EC horror comics of the same name and penned by horror legend Stephen King, with a special appearance by the Creepy Weirdo. This fearsome feature film is a blast from beginning to end, with enough twists and turns within its 5 terrifying tales to make any horror lover cheer with glee and beg for more. Blessed with an outstanding cast of characters including Leslie Nielsen, Adrienne Barbeau, Hal Holbrook, Ted Danson, Ed Harris, and E.G. Marshall. And a brief appearance by fan favorite Tom Atkins. It's safe to say that the star power of Creepshow is through the roof and completely legendary. Within the 5 stories, we are treated to decrepit zombies, both soggy and also rotten, a ravenous beast with an insatiable appetite, disgusting insects that fester in swarms, a consuming space fungal substance that corrupts everything in its path, and a voodoo doll straight from hell. With the film's vibrant color palette and penchant to go a little over the top with the creepy material, Creepshow genuinely captures a vibe and tone that is unlike anything seen within the horror anthology realm, and this classic forces you to take notice and remember it for its unique qualities and unforgettably demented moments, which I might say come at a constant pace and never disappoint. Wholly bizarre and ensconced in potent visuals and creepy tunes provided by George Romero regular John Harrison, Creepshow is a masterclass in entertaining horror anthology goodness that just keeps getting better with each and every viewing. Freaking out into the number 5 spot is the 1973 insane and psychotic action horror sci-fi flick, The Crazies. Extremely low budget and strangely believable for the over-the-top lunacy that flashes across the screen. This bizarre gem truly packs a punch with its fear-inducing chaos and paranoid virus mayhem. Chiefly cast by a gaggle of Pittsburgh natives and shot primarily in Evans City, Pennsylvania, this fascinatingly weird pandemic production does a fantastic job in cranking up the oddity of the situation, as a toxic chemical is unleashed within a small rural town, only to transform its citizens into raving and violence-prone maniacs. It's wild, over-the-top, and completely crazy, and George Romero does wonders with the quaint locales and low-budget aspects of the film that spill into an all-out cornucopia of maddening entertainment that progresses into some rather interesting moments and obscure situations that justifies the title of The Crazies. Blending Romero's views on the dangers of the military complex and the cost of lives lost against the greater good, The Crazies is a fascinatingly interesting horror production that contains that social commentary that Romero is so famous for, yet mostly focuses on pushing that story into complete and utter insanity that eventually ends with splendidly unusual results that could possibly drive you batshit crazy. Bloodletting its way to the number 4 spot is the completely unorthodox and fantastically enjoyable mid-70s vampire flick, Martin. Strangely unique and without a doubt totally unpredictable, this modern vampire tale takes an unprecedented stab at the genre and twists things up a bit, laying out a schizophrenic presentation that delves into the inner workings of a young man named Martin, who believes himself to be an 84-year-old vampire who survives on the blood of his victims. Performed masterfully by Romero regular John Amplis, and directed and edited with a mindful and creative touch, this profusely puzzling genre bender does a fantastic job in mixing up the formula that we're used to when it comes to blood-sucking creatures of the night, and gives it a more modern spin, where Martin steals the blood of his victims with the use of a syringe and clever planning, while constantly battling loneliness and his own sanity, forging a strangely sympathetic ghoul that you surprisingly come to root for, or at least fascinate in. Almost played out in a serial killer fashion character study, Martin flips the table on tradition, creating a cinematic experience that is hard not to get swept up in. Whether it's the outstanding performance of John Amplis in the central role, or the mind-warping way in which Romero weaves this tale of dementia and devilish behavior, there's so much to love within the wild ride that is Martin, and that's why the film earned the heralded spot at number 4. Shuffling its way into the number 3 spot is the remarkably atmospheric and compelling late 60s zombie masterpiece that started it all, The Night of the Living Dead. Centralized mostly in an old farmhouse and following the diverse cast of colorful characters that board themselves inside in fear of the walking dead attempting to take their lives and their flesh, the classic black and white production breaks the mold in traditional voodoo-style archetypes and produces an entirely new macabre approach to the undead ghouls. Drenched in morbid tones and impressive with its dynamic cast and social commentary on society and the failure of mankind, the film is a spellbinding experience to say the least, and it's a production that was completely ahead of its time in both content and cruelty. Moody imagery, spooky soundtrack, and fantastic fear aside, the cast of The Night of the Living Dead is a whole other beast, with standout performances by Pittsburgh locals and newcomers Dwayne Jones, Judith O'Dea, Carl Hardman, Marilyn Eastman, Russell Streiner, and William Hinsman, who all brings this morbid tale to stark life. It's a classic to say the least, and one of George Romero's best efforts in the genre of horror, and one of the most important contributions to the now legendary subgenre known as zombie flicks. Disemboweling its way into the number 2 spot is the masterpiece of zombie mayhem and drama madness all wrapped into one, George Romero's exceptionally amazing mid-80s zombie feature, Day of the Dead. Rude, crude, and totally filled with brood, this outstanding 1985 flick is a masterclass in practical gore effects, tonal atmospheric prowess, and colorful character gusto, making for a cinematic experience that is almost impossible to top in my opinion, and hard not to love. Taking place far into the zombie apocalypse, where society has totally collapsed and the world is one big zombie playground. A small pocket of survivors holed up in an underground military installation, desperately trying to communicate with the outside world, while at the same time maintaining their sanity in a completely insane undead world. Headlined by a completely campy, entertaining cast and performed with enough energy to shake a stick at, the actors and actresses throw themselves headlong into the fray, resulting in so many memorable movie moments that it might make your cult classic loving minds explode from sheer enjoyment. Laurie Cardell, Terry Alexander, Joseph Pilato, Richard Liberty, John Amplis, and Sherman Howard do an amazing job with the material, and they all give performances worthy of praise, especially from ghoul-loving weirdos that just eat this stuff up. Combined with the excessive practical gore effects of the picture brought to us by Tom Savini and Greg Nicotero, and the robust and moody soundtrack by regular Romero collaborator John Harrison, and you've got yourself one hell of a mighty concoction, which produced one of the most entertainingly demented zombie flicks to ever come out of the genre. Lumbering and devouring its way into the number 1 spot is the 1978 sprawling zombie epic Dawn of the Dead. Saturated with sharp social commentary and cautioning the dangers of modern materialistic societies, the film is blanketed in an undeniable sense of doom and dread that permeates every crevice of this sweeping undead tale. using its iconic locations to damn near perfection. The mall that is the centerpiece of this classic story is a character unto itself, providing countless places for our main characters to battle it out in, and struggle to survive the ever-growing throngs of the Walking Dead. With an intimate cast of character actors comprised of Ken Foree, Galen Ross, Scott Reiniger, and David Emge, the production is projected into iconic status thanks to all of their efforts and the ingenuity and vision of its masterful director. Though the makeup effects for the zombies is less to be desired, the sheer scope of everything and the inventive way in which the gore splashes its way across the screen fully makes up for any low-budget trappings that could cripple lesser artists of the medium. Throw in the amazing score by the Italian rock band Goblin, the resourceful and entertaining special effects by Tom Savini, and the insanity that is the story in general, and you have the perfect recipe for a cult classic horror masterpiece that is unquestionably one for the record books. It's epic in scope, haunting and dire, and tremendously entertaining, and it's the sole reason why Dawn of the Dead landed at the very top of the pack when it comes to George Romero's most accomplished of cinematic creations. And there you have it, you badass cinema lovers. That is my top 10 flicks of George Romero, and boy are they some great films. Some classics in there, and really special stuff from the amazing filmmaker that really brought us so many great horror features that it's almost kind of ridiculous to wrap your head around. He is my absolute favorite director, and I love the fact that he does so many different genres and has so many interesting takes on the typical kind of horror stories. But fabulous filmmaker, and I know probably some of your guys' lists might be a little bit different, but hopefully you got that one some entertainment value out of it and have some of the similar picks that I chose. But guys, that is it for me today. Hope you enjoyed that one, and I hope you like what I'm doing here. If you do, please like and subscribe, and if you have time, leave a comment below because I love hearing from you. But until then, I will see you all the next time I'm in front of a camera talking about movies. So see you guys later, and take care. See ya!